Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, November 5th, reveal that Nathan West will face a guardianship enforcement decision while Giovanni Gio Palmieri makes a plea to Tracy Quartermaine. Anna Devane will also deal with a scary ambush, so there'll be a lot passing in Port Charles. For starters, Tracy will tell Gio that there's been a reversal of fortune. Gio will hear about Monica Quartermaine's will being set up, which means the Quartermaine house now belongs to Tracy. Of course, Gio will be pleased to know the fiddle was exposed and that Monica's true wishes were carried out. That said, Gio may wonder why Tracy's each alone rather of celebrating this news with the rest of the family. Sorely, Tracy just demurred everyone out for standing in solidarity with Veronica Ronnie Bard and showing her compassion for doing the right thing in the end. Still, Gio will reason with Tracy on Wednesday's show and agree with Ned Quartermaine about how she should throw her family out for malignancy. Maybe Gio will relate to that assignment since he pushed down people who watched about him when he shouldn't have. After Gio delivers a sincere plea to Tracy, she may see the light and invite everyone to come back home. Tracy may agree to cut Ronnie some slack and admit she still needs her family in her life. Speaking of family, Danny Morgan will make a heartbreaking admission about his own. During an emotional discussion with Alexis Davis, Danny will confess to feeling like he let his mama down. Sam McCall would have wanted Danny to step up as Scout Quartermaine's big family and find a way to guide her after such a great loss. Danny would suppose he's honored Sam's wishes for her children to be together and support each other. Alexis will no doubt point out that Drew Kane is the real problem then and assure Danny that Sam would be so proud of him. Danny has been fighting hard to be Scout's life, so Alexis may promise she's not giving up on making that be. Next, Nathan will sit down for a meeting with Felicia Scorpio and Damian Spinelli. Grounded on what Spinelli and Felicia say regarding James West, Nathan will ask if that's their way of telling him that he should apply guardianship. It seems like that'll indeed be what Felicia and Spinelli are saying since they'll express relief on Wednesday's show. It sounds like Nathan will agree not to force the issue for now, but he may want to arrange plenitude of James' visits in the meantime. In Anna Devane's office, she'll talk to Jason Morgan about demanding to find out if Caesar Faison is still alive. Jason may worry about the peril Anna could be in, but she'll snap that she has to be the one to finish him. Anna's Faison-related digging will leave Jason with major enterprises. It turns out a dangerous situation is indeed ahead for Anna, who'll be ambuscaded in her auto soon after. Anna will be chloroformed and abducted, so stay tuned for updates on who's behind the swiping and how she might get out of this mess. Across city, it looks like Sonny Corinthos will invite ADA Justine Turner for an evening of hatchet throwing. Sonny will lean in close at one point and assure Justine that if she doesn't feel safe around him, also she doesn't have to stay. General Hospital spoilers say Justine will indeed stick around and have some fun with Sonny, so that'll lead to some close moments in the midst of their common manipulation. The air in the chapel was thick, a palpable mixture of incense, hope, and the faint, sweet scent of baby powder. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting fractured jewels of color across the small, gathered congregation. This was to be a day of purity, a sacred welcome for the newest, most innocent soul in Port Charles. But in a town where the past is a living, breathing entity, no day remains untouched by the ghosts of yesterday. Today, the ghost had a name, Veronica. The ceremony was simple, beautiful. The priest, a gentle man with a voice that soothed the edges of the world, cradled the infant with practiced care. The parents, their faces etched with a profound, weary love, stood hand in hand, their knuckles white not from tension, but from a shared, unbreakable bond forged in recent fires. They had chosen godparents, pillars of the community, flawed but fiercely loyal, who stood as solemn sentinels, vowing to protect this child from the shadows they knew all too well. The priest's words were a balm. Through this holy sacrament, we are freed from sin and reborn as children of God. He spoke of new beginnings, of a slate wiped clean, of a future written in grace. They were encouraging words, a lighthouse beam in the foggy, treacherous waters of Port Charles life. For a moment, it was possible to believe in them, to believe that this child, at least, could be spared the cyclical dramas of their parents. And then, the chapel door creaked open. A silhouette, backlit by the harsh afternoon sun, paused on the threshold. All heads turned. It was Ronnie, her usual aura of sharp-edged composure replaced by a visible, trembling disquiet. Her eyes, usually scanning a room for angles and advantages, were fixed on the altar, on the family unit gathered there. She slipped into the back pew, a phantom at the feast, her presence an immediate, discordant note in the harmonious hymn. The ceremony continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. The sanctity of the moment now felt fragile, a soap bubble threatening to pop at the slightest touch. The parents exchanged a worried glance. The godparents straightened their postures, their protective instincts flaring. Ronnie did not pray. She did not sing. She simply watched, her gaze a weight pressing down on the proceedings. As the priest anointed the baby's head with chrism, the symbol of salvation and a seal of the Holy Spirit, Ronnie's resolve seemed to solidify. The holy oil, meant to consecrate and protect, seemed to act as a catalyst for a very different kind of anointing, one of truth, corrosive and long suppressed. The final blessing was given. A collective, albeit tense, sigh of relief passed through the family. It was over. The child was baptized, safe in the eyes of God and their community. They began to mill about, offering quiet congratulations, their voices hushed in the sacred space. It was then that Ronnie stood. Her movement was not aggressive, but it was decisive. It cut through the soft murmurs like a knife. Wait. The single word, quiet but firm, brought all conversation to an abrupt halt. All eyes were on her again. She walked slowly down the center aisle, her footsteps echoing on the stone floor. She wasn't looking at the parents, or the godparents. Her gaze was locked on a man across the room, Drew Kane. And then it flickered to the space where Jason Morgan should have been, his absence a ghostly presence of its own. I need to say something, Ronnie began, her voice hoarse, as if the words were being physically torn from her. Before I leave this town for good, before I try to outrun the ghosts that have made a home in my conscience, I have to confess. Carly Corinthos, ever the lioness, took a half step forward, her body positioning itself between Ronnie and her family. Whatever this is, Ronnie, it can wait. This isn't the time or the place. There is no right time or place for this, Carly, Ronnie replied, her eyes never leaving Drew's confused face. There never was. That's the problem. I've spent decades looking for one. She took a deep, shuddering breath, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet chapel. The encouraging words of the baptism felt like a cruel joke now, the promise of a new beginning mocking the ancient history she was about to unleash. You all look at me and you see a fixer. A manipulator. A criminal, maybe, she said, a bitter smile touching her lips. And you're not wrong. I am all those things. I've done terrible things for money, for power, for survival. But long before I was any of that. I was a girl. A scared, stupid girl who made a choice that has haunted every second of my life since. Drew frowned, a knot of dread forming in his stomach. Ronnie, what are you talking about? I'm talking about you, Drew, she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. And I'm talking about Jason. A ripple of confusion went through the room. Sonny Corinthos's expression darkened, his protective instincts shifting from the baby to the man he considered a brother, even in his absence. Sam McCall, connected to both men through a complex web of love and history, felt a cold chill run down her spine. 35 years ago, Ronnie continued, her story unfolding like a poisonous flower. I wasn't Ronnie then. I was someone else. Younger. Softer. I got involved with a man. A powerful, dangerous man from this very city. It was intense, reckless. And I got pregnant. She wrapped her arms around herself, a self-soothing gesture that seemed profoundly out of character. I was in no position to be a mother. I was terrified. Of him, of the future, of everything. So, I made a plan. I would have the baby, give it up for what I thought was a better life, and disappear. But life, as it often does, had other plans. I found out I was carrying twins. The word twins hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The pieces, jagged and impossible, began to click into place in Drew's mind. He shook his head, a silent, desperate denial. No, he breathed. When you were born, Ronnie pressed on, her voice gaining a desperate momentum, as if she had to say it all now or she never would. I held you both, just for a moment. I looked at your faces, and a part of me, the part that was still a mother, shattered. But the fear was stronger. The man, your father, he could never know. If he knew, he would have claimed you, and his world, it would have destroyed you. Or he would have destroyed me for keeping you from him. So, I did what I thought I had to do. I signed the papers. I let them take you away. I was told you'd be adopted together, by a good family, the Canes. I told myself it was a blessing. The confession was a seismic shock, rattling the very foundations of the chapel and the lives within it. Drew Kane, the man who had spent years searching for his identity, who had grappled with amnesia and a stolen past, now found his origin story was a lie built upon an even greater lie. He wasn't just a Kane. He was the son of this broken, ruthless woman and some unnamed, dangerous Port Charles patriarch. And Jason Morgan, the legendary enforcer, the man of few words and unshakable loyalty, was his full-blooded brother. You, Drew stammered, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. All this time, you knew who I was? When we worked together? When you looked me in the eye and called me Kane? I knew, Ronnie admitted, the shame finally breaking through her hardened exterior. The moment I realized who you were, it was like being punched in the gut. You had your father's eyes. Both of you did. It was like seeing a ghost. Two ghosts. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could be near you, help you even, without ever telling you the truth. But every day, it ate away at me. The initial shock began to curdle into anger. Sam moved to Drew's side, placing a steadying hand on his arm. How could you keep this a secret? Sam demanded, her voice sharp with outrage. Do you have any idea what Drew has been through? What Jason went through? Their entire lives, the pain, the identity crises, and you knew? You knew they were brothers, truly brothers, and you said nothing? What was I supposed to say? Ronnie cried out, her composure cracking completely. Hello, Drew, I'm the mother who abandoned you and your brother to a life of violence and brainwashing and constant danger. By the way, your biological father is a monster who would have used you as pawns or killed you to get to me. There was no good outcome. There was only the hell I was living and the hell I was sparing you. Sparing us? Drew's voice was low, dangerous, trembling with a lifetime of suppressed pain. You didn't spare us anything. You condemned us. Jason was turned into a weapon by a madman. He lived and died by a code of violence. I was shipped off to the military, had my memory erased. My life stolen from me not once, but twice. We could have had each other. We were brothers, and we never knew. We spent our lives in the same city, fighting the same battles, and we never knew we shared blood. You robbed us of that. You are the reason we never had that. His words were lacerating, each one a verdict. The encouraging words of the baptism, of community, of family, of shared responsibility, were now the backdrop to a scene of familial devastation. The sacred space had become a courtroom. I was trying to protect you. Ronnie insisted, but the argument sounded hollow, even to her. You were protecting yourself. Carly exploded, her own maternal fury blazing. You're a coward. You walked away and you never looked back, and then you had the audacity to come back here and insert yourself into their lives without ever having the decency to tell them the truth. You don't get to call that protection. The anger in the room was a living thing, feeding on the shocking revelation. Sonny finally spoke, his voice a low, threatening rumble. Who was the father, Ronnie? The question silenced everyone. It was the final, terrifying piece of the puzzle. If the mother was a chaotic, dangerous force, the father, given Ronnie's description, was a cataclysm. Ronnie shook her head, a fresh wave of fear in her eyes. No. I can't. I've said too much already. That is one secret I will take to my grave. Telling you about me, that was my burden to confess. Telling you about him, that would be a death sentence. For me, and possibly for you. Her refusal to name him was, in itself, an answer. It confirmed their worst fears. The threat was not just in the past, it was a present and active danger. The truth she had unburdened herself of was not a cleansing, it was a contagion. You don't get to drop a bomb like this and then just walk away, Drew said, his voice cold and flat. The initial heat of his anger had condensed into something harder, more permanent. You don't get to unload your guilt onto us and then skip town. You have answers. I want them. All of them. I have to leave, Drew, Ronnie pleaded, taking a step back toward the door. Don't you see? By telling you this, I've put a target on my back. He will find out. He always finds out. My only chance is to disappear, for good this time. Then you should have stayed disappeared the first time. Sam shot back. The scene was a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. The newborn, sensing the tension, began to fuss, a tiny, innocent whimper that served as a stark contrast to the adult anguish filling the room. The parents instinctively huddled around their child, the baptismal promises of safety now feeling like a fragile hope in a suddenly much more dangerous world. Ronnie looked at the faces surrounding her, Drew's betrayed fury, Sam's protective rage, Carly's contempt, Sonny's ominous calm. She had wanted absolution, but she had only succeeded in scattering the seeds of a new, more destructive conflict. Her confession was not a conclusion, it was a prologue. I am sorry, she said, and for the first time it sounded genuine, stripped of all her defenses and manipulations. It was the raw, broken apology of a mother who knew her sin was unforgivable. I am so sorry for the pain I've caused. To you, Drew. To Jason's memory. To all of you who loved him. She looked directly at Drew, her eyes begging for an understanding she knew she would never receive. You have every right to hate me. I hate myself. But please, believe that in my own twisted, broken way, I did what I did out of a warped form of love. A desperate, terrified love that chose the lesser of two hells. I was wrong. I see that now. But I can't change it. With that, she turned and walked quickly back up the aisle. No one tried to stop her. They were all too stunned, too caught in the wreckage of her truth. The heavy chapel door swung shut behind her with a final, resonant thud, leaving a silence that was louder than any scream. In the aftermath, the encouraging words of the priest felt like a distant dream. The baptism had begun in hope, but it had ended in a revelation that would send shockwaves through every family, every alliance, in Port Charles. Drew now had to reconcile his entire identity with this new, painful reality. He and Jason were not just kindred spirits or brothers in arms, they were twins, separated by their own mother's fear. And somewhere out there, a dangerous man, a monster from Ronnie's past, was now an unwitting and terrifying part of their story. The angry threats were no longer vague, they were implicit in Ronnie's terror, in her frantic escape. The truth was out, and it had not set anyone free. It had only built a new, more terrifying cage. The baptism was over. The war for the truth had just begun. And as the family stood amidst the pews, holding on to each other and the innocent child at the center of the storm, one thing was painfully clear: in Port Charles, the past is never just the past. It is a predator, and it had just been unleashed.